Alrighty guys, we are adding and subtracting fractions. Now last week we talked about converting improper fractions mixed numbers into improper fractions. We're going to have to do that again. So I'm just going to review that just a little bit. So if I have 3 1/4, remember you multiply the denominator and the whole number. So I have 4 times 3, which is 12. And then you add that to the numerator. So I'm going to add 1. So that's 13. And then remember, it sits right back down on your starting denominator. So that's 13 over 4. I got that glare. Sorry, guys. Okay. So 3 1/4 is the same thing as 13 over 4. So let's say that your problem is this. Let's say that we have 3 1/4 plus 2/3. Okay, so that's my problem. 3 1/4 plus 2/3. Drop my pens. Okay, we've already changed the mixed number to an improper fraction. So that's 13 over 4. So this is 13 over 4 plus 2/3. Now, with adding and subtracting fractions, there's a couple steps you need to follow. Steps, I'm going to write steps right here. So step 1, we are going to change mixed numbers to improper fractions. That should not be a surprise. That's always our first step when we're dealing with fractions. Okay, so that's always our first step. That hasn't changed. All right, our second step is we are going to find the common denominator. Okay, we're going to find the common denominator. Now, to do that, you're going to look at your denominators. Okay, so look here. What you're going to do is you're actually going to take this denominator, which is a 4, and you're going to multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by that denominator. Then you're going to do the same thing with this denominator over here. So your third step is to multiply the numerator, which remember is your top, and the denominator, which is your bottom. Okay. So multiply the numerator and the denominator of each fraction by the opposite denominator. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this fraction by this denominator. And I'm going to multiply this fraction by this denominator. So what is that going to look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to show you. So that's going to look like this. So I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to multiply it over here. So I'm going to have 3 over 3 times that 13 over 4. Okay? Then plus, now I'm going to take this 4 over here. So now I'm going to have 2 over 3 times 4 over 4. So you multiply the numerator and the denominator of each fraction by the opposite denominator. So for this first one, I multiplied the numerator and the denominator by 3 because that was the opposite denominator. And this one, I multiplied the numerator and the denominator by 4 because that was the opposite denominator. So that's what that means. Okay? Then your next step, which I'm going to have to do our camera down a little bit because I'm running out of room. Step 4. Okay, multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. Oopsie, this one can't spell. Denominator times denominator. Okay, so right here, 13 times 3 is 39 over 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 2 times 4 is 8 over 3 times 4 is 12. These better be the same. If they're not, we have issues. Okay, so these have to be the same. Once you've done that, step 5, add your numerators. And you keep denominator the same. Okay, so you add the numerator and you keep the denominator the same. And I know I'm starting to abbreviate, but I'm running out of room here. So 39 plus 8 is 47. And I keep the denominator the same, which is 12. And then your very, 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 very last step, and I'm going to write it right here. Step number 6, convert back to a mixed number. Okay, that's your last step, is to convert back to a mixed number. So remember how we do that. I'm going to slide my board a little bit so I can do it up here so it's a little bit easier for you to see. Okay, so I'm going to divide this. So how many times does 12 go into 47? Okay, if that was 48, it would be 4, but it's not. So that means that 12 goes into 47 3 times. 12 times 3 is 36. When I subtract, that gives me 11. Now, hopefully, y'all remember from last week what we did next. So remember, this is your whole number. Okay, that's your whole number. This is your numerator. That glares back in it. And then this is your denominator. Okay, so whole number, numerator, denominator. So 47 over 12 is 3 and 11 over 12. So this would be my final answer. Okay? So you start by converting the mixed number to an improper fraction, and we end by taking the improper fraction back to a mixed number. Alrighty? So that's your first example. Now, of course, we're going to do more, but that's just your first one. All right. see how this is going to erase here. Not great, but I think we can still see. We'll see. Without me having to clean it completely. All right, so let's do another one. So let's say that I give you 3/4 minus 2 1/3. Nope, let's not do third. Let's do 2 1/5. Okay. Now the first one was just both of them were positive. We didn't have to worry about sign rules. This one we do. I just wanted to remind you about stuff and getting a common denominator. So what is our first step? Our first step, we have to change the mixed number to an improper fraction. So remember, we multiply here and we add here. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. So we have 3/4 minus 11/5. Okay? So that's where we are there. Our second step is to find a common denominator. So to do that, we multiply the numerator and the denominator by the denominator in the opposite fraction. So that means that I'm going to multiply this fraction by 5, top and bottom. And that means that I'm going to multiply this fraction by 4, top and bottom. Okay? So this gives me 5/5 times 3/4 minus 11/5 times 4/4. There you go. All right, so now our next step is we multiply numerators, we multiply denominators. So 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 4 is 20. Minus 11 times 4 is 44. 5 times 4 is 20. So now we have a common denominator. Now we simply combine our numerators. Does our denominator change? No, it does not. So my denominator is going to be 20. Whatever the numerator is, that's what I got to figure out. The denominator's already figured out. When I figured it out up here, when I found the common denominator, that's my denominator. So my denominator is 20. So that's one thing I've already figured out. Now, 15 minus 44. Remember when we were talking about sign rules? You have a couple questions I said. Are my signs the same? I have a positive here. I have a negative here. Are my signs the same? No. Therefore, I don't add the numbers. What do I have to do? My signs are different, so I have to subtract. So I'm going to do 44 minus 15. So that's a 14. That becomes a 3. So 14 minus 5 is 9. 3 minus 1 is 2. Now, is that 29 going to be positive or negative? Well, let's look at our numbers. Which one's bigger? If we're counting, which one's bigger, 15 or 44? That's right, 44. Because as I'm counting up, 44 is bigger than 15. It takes me longer to get there, right? So this is going to be negative 29. So it's negative 29 over 20. Can I leave it like this? Looks good to me. No, unfortunately, I cannot. I have to convert it back to a mixed number. So I have 20 on the outside. I have 29 on the inside. Now, I already know that it's going to be negative. So I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, I know it's negative. I don't have to worry about the negative. Now I just got to figure out what goes where. So how many times does 20 go into 29? Last time I checked, once. 20 times 1 is 20. When I subtract, 29 minus 20 is 9. So remember, this is your whole number. This is your numerator. And this is your denominator. All right? So my whole number is 1. My numerator is 9. And my denominator is 20. So my final answer is negative 1 and 9 over 20. Okay? So there it is. All right, I'm going to do one more, and then that's going to be it. And then you'll see me in our little bit with the worksheets, your assignments. All right, so last one for this lesson. Let's say I have a negative 4, what do we want to do? Let's do 4/3 minus a negative, okay, that's already an improper fraction. Minus a negative 1 and 1/2. We'll do it that way. All right. So this one's already an improper fraction. So that's one less you have to do. Now we do have to convert this one. So remember, we're going to multiply here. So 2 times 1 is 2. Plus 1 is 3. And then all over that 2. But now don't forget, we've got to deal with this. So right now, this is what we're looking at. That's what we've got right now. And I did this one on purpose to remind you about something. Can we have a double negative? Just like in English, can you use a double negative? No, we cannot have a double negative. What happens when you have a double negative? They cancel each other out and they become what? Positives. Okay, so what we technically have now is negative 4/3 plus 3/2. Now we've got all that handled. Now we can do our common denominator. What are we going to multiply by? We're going to multiply this fraction by 2. So this one's going to be by 2. And then the other one we're going to multiply by 3. Okay? So we have 2 over 2 times negative 4 over 3 plus 3 over 2 times 3 over 3. All right, now 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. 2 times 3 is 6. Plus 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 3 is 6. So we have our common denominator now. So we know our common denominator is 6. Now we got to figure out what goes on top. Are my signs the same? That's the first question you ask yourself. This is a negative. This is a positive. Are my signs the same? Yes or no? No. So therefore, I'm not adding, I'm subtracting. So I'm going to do 9 minus 8, which is 1. Now, Is it going to be a positive 1 or a negative 1? We look at our numbers. Which is bigger, 8 or 9? 9 is bigger. Well, my 9 is positive, so that means that 1 is positive. So it is 1 over 6. Now, that's nice. I don't have to convert anything, so my answer is 1 over 6. Okay? All right. So that's it for this one. You'll get a little bit more when we look at your worksheet in your lesson. All right, guys. See you there.